Hey Absolites! So, in Loomian Legacy, there are 7 starter Loomians. Well, okay, yeah, they're technically called beginner Loomians, but they're basically just starters. And while obviously you should just pick the one you like the most, there's obviously also going to be one that matches up better against the game than the others do. Today, we find out what. Before we get started though, I just need to get a few things out of the way. 1. The game is not yet finished. I'm judging this based on what we already have, and since there's no major battles on Route 8, I'm judging this based on up to the 3rd Battle Theater, since there's not anything of note on Polyp Campus other than some grunts and Corrupt Protagon. Also, because of that, I'm only going to be thinking about the 1st and 2nd forms, because that's what you'll have doing a normal playthrough of this game up to this point. B. Obviously, this does have to be somewhat subjective, but I am using hard data like movesets and how well they match up against the game's bosses. I'm doing this how Rizo handles the best starter for Pokemon series on his channel, by giving each starter a rating for each major battle in the game. Lastly, Gamma. In order to save time, I took Snowcub, Feevine, and Eaglet out of the equation due to them not having stab that beats any main types for any battle star. Those of you that watch my Let's Play stuff will know that the starter I picked for this game was Vambat, so let's figure it out first. Vambat, all around, is solidly okay. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 for Naya, thanks to her 2 Geklos being weak to Vambat, but also Vambat being weak to them, and then being mutually resistant to Kleptyke. Oh, FYI, I'm thinking mostly about the Loomian Stab for 2 reasons. 1, Loomians in this game don't really get great coverage, and 2, for other types you'll probably have other Loomians on your team to cover those. For Akio, I gave Vambat a 2.5, because while only Wizzpup actually has Fire-type moves, Vambat will be a Dimpire, but will not yet have Air Slash, so it can't do much of anything offense-wise, and is weak to Wizzpup's Singe, and, you get it, it's not that great. Last, for Battle Stars, I gave Vambat a solid middle-of-the-road 3 out of 5 for Faust, thanks to it being mutually neutral to all of her Pokemon. Moving on to rival battles, and for Lucas, I gave it a 4.5 for the first battle, and a 3.5 for the second, thanks to the addition of a Baroach, making a Dark-type matchup a lot worse against him. For Jake, I gave it a 2.5 because Vambat's weak to Ambit and both strong and weak to Geklo. So if you can outspeed an Oko is great, but Geklo is fairly fast so you probably can't, and he'll probably just beat you. Lastly, for Lucy, I gave Vambat a middle-of-the-road 3 for both fights, because Vambat is either mutually resistant or mutually neutral to all her Pokemon. This overall gives Vambat a middle-of-the-road average of 3. So if you pick Vambat, you're fine, but there's a better option out there. Those of you who watch my Let's Plays will also know that the only starter I currently have on my squad is Zweilong. So let's check out how Weavile does next. For Naya, I gave it a middle-of-the-road 3, thanks to all her Pokemon being either mutually resistant or mutually neutral to Weavile. For Akio, I gave it a 2.5, because Wizzpup resists both Electric and Typeless, the only 2 types of attacks Weavile, which would probably be a Stozap at this point, would have. For Faust, I gave Stozap a 4, because while Concrodon can decimate if you're not careful, Munchwheel is weak to Electric, and Stratosaur is quad weak to it. Moving on to rivals. For Lucas, I gave it a 2 for the first battle thanks to it being resisted by both his Loomians, and a 1.5 for the second thanks to the addition of Baroach to his squad messing up electric types even more. For Jake, I gave it a good middle-of-the-road 3 because Weavile's okay against both his Loomians. For Lucy, I gave it a 2.5 for the first battle due to Fancub resisting and Kleptyke being neutral, and a 3.5 for the second because all that still applies, but the addition of Wimpor makes her a lot weaker to Electric. All in all, this gives Weavile an average of... wait, 2.25? Okay, that is not what I was expecting. So, all in all, if you want to pick Weavile, go ahead, just know that you might have something of a bad time. I can't think of any more good transitions, so let's just move on to Dripple next. For Naya, I gave Dripple a 4, thanks to him being good against her Geklos, but also being weak to them in return. He's also neutral to Kleptyke. For Akio, I gave Dripple a full-on 5 out of 5, because he can easily body Akio's whole team with a Stab super effective, Water Bomb, or Submerge, depending on whether you want speed or power. For Faust, I gave Dripple a 3.5, because he's good against Concrodon's Earth typing and resists metal from the other two. Moving on to Rivals, and I gave Lucas a 3 for the first battle, thanks to being weak to both his Loomians, but Geklo not having any electric moves, meaning that it can't use its electric to hurt you before you can get in a water move. For the second fight, I gave it a 3 again, because while the addition of Baruch to the squad made him weaker to water and ice, putting Taze on Eliguana means that it can mess you up when it outspeeds. And Eliguana is way faster than Reptide, so it's not even an if, it's a when. Look at this, just look at it. It probably can't Oko thanks to Eliguana's melee attack being way lower than its ranged attack, Taze being weak, and Reptide having good melee defense, but it can definitely do some damage. For Jake, I gave it a full-on 5 out of 5, thanks to Geklo not having an electric move, and both his Loomians being weak to water. Last is Lucy, and I gave her a 3 for both battles, because Dripple is mutually neutral the whole time. This gives it an average of 3.7, by far our best yet. So, can Ambit claim this crown? Who knows? I changed some stuff up, giving me a different result between when I wrote my notes and when I wrote my script, so I don't even know if Ambit can win this anymore. You probably don't actually know this, because I'm pretty sure I've never mentioned it, but my favorite Loomian in all of existence is actually Ambit, which is why we've saved the best for last. Sorry Dripple, sorry Fevine. For Naya, I gave it a 3, thanks to the Geklos resisting it, but Kleptyke being weak to it. For Akio, I gave Ambit a middle-of-the-road 3, thanks to being mutually resisted all the way through. For Faust, I gave Ambit a 4.5, thanks to being good against all 3 of her Loomians, and the only hurdles being that he's weak to air and earth moves from Stratosaur and Concrodon respectively, but unlike Dripple, is pretty fast and durable, since Quicksand from Concrodon isn't super strong, Cyclone Slam from Stratosaur is pretty much the only thing you need to worry about, and its melee attack is 34 versus Raburn's 95 melee defense. You won't be taking much damage in this fight. On with the Rivals, I gave it a 3.5 for both Lucas fights, due to him having one Loomian that resists fire and one being weak to it in each fight. For Jake, I gave it a 2.5, thanks to both his Loomians resisting fire, and only Ambit being mutually resistant to it. Last is Lucy, and I gave her a 4 for the first fight, and a 4.5 for the second, thanks to being mutually neutral to Fancub, good against Kleptyke, and good against Wimpor. That gives it an average of 3.6, it's actually not as good as Dripple. Wow, that's surprising. Okay, Dripple is the best starter up to this point in the game. Wow, that's really not what I was expecting. But it's true, so hope you have some fun using it. Anyway, peace out. Wow, this video was actually pretty fun and surprisingly easy to make. I was not expecting Dripple to be the best starter, even after redoing the math when I wrote the script. The first time I went through this, when I figured out all my notes, I got Ambit as the best, but later on realized that Dripple actually matches a lot better against the game than Ambit does. Oh, by the way, what do you think will happen in Atlantean City whenever we get the next update? I'm guessing it'll be a big underwater city, because in Brick Bronze, Anthean City was a big city, and some NPC on Route 8 says that it used to be Anthean City, but something happened, and the underwater part comes from, you know, Atlantis. But, we're getting off topic, so thank you all so much for watching all the way to the end. This has been fun, but Absol from Absol and the Loomians is signing off. Peace out!